Hey there, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of 10-Sided Dice on WTEN Plus. I'm Jackson Tollerton. I'm the host of 10-Sided Dice, and usually I'm the dungeon master for our Dungeons & Dragons playing that we do on 10-Sided Dice. But we are finishing up a special series that we've been working on, discussing the 13 main classes of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So the series kind of has jumped into the differences between the different classes, all different ways you can kind of play them and build characters for your own. And I kind of started it as a way of introducing people who may be newer to D&D as to like a little bit of direction on what kind of character might be best for them. And as I said, the kind of the intricacies that separate the different classes. So we have made it through a good chunk. We've got 5 left. We've discussed with the first episode. If you haven't checked it out, you can check it out on our app and on our website. WTEN Plus is the app, and news10.com. You can check out all of our CTV shows. So in the first episode, we discussed what I call the 4 main classes, the 4 kind of classes that really started it all, and I think most other classes kind of stem from. We have the armor-clad fighter, wielding a variety of weapons. We have the magic arcane-wielding wizard. We have the divine holy warriors that are clerics. And we have the sneaky, lock-picking, backstabbing rogues. So those are our 4 main archetypes. The second episode kind of jumped into a little bit of the variance classes, as I call them, mainly the martial ones that kind of stem off of fighter. We discussed the rageful and mighty barbarians. We discussed Paladin, which is a little bit of a mix of fighter and cleric, holy warriors, knights of their religious orders, championing their deity. The Ranger, a little bit of mix of fighter and rogue, bow-wielding nature survivalists that are often connecting with animals. And the mighty monk, unarmed, unarmored martial artists who kind of can channel their inner ki and do things that are kind of above the average athlete or fisticuffs warrior. So now we're going to move on to the last 5 classes, which I think are kind of offshoot stems inspired by the other 3 archetypes, the wizard, the cleric, and the rogue. So we're going to jump right in. So we have 2 other classes that are similar to wizard but have their own kind of branches off. We're going to jump into the sorcerer. So I think the word wizard, the word sorcerer, magician, warlock, they all kind of get thrown around, I think, in a lot of contexts and movies and books and stories sometimes as kind of being all the same thing. A person who can use magic, a magician, wizard, witch, warlock, sorcerer. And in a lot of the contexts, a lot of like book series, movies, shows, it is essentially a synonym for somebody who can use magic. But in Dungeons and Dragons, all of these things are usually pretty unique. So the sorcerer. What's the difference between a wizard and a sorcerer? That's going to be kind of the main point here is, so we learned in the previous episodes that wizards are scholars. They do not know, they cannot, at birth, as they're starting off into their adventuring world, they don't know magic. They cannot cast magic. They can't use spells or anything like that until they study them through their own personal studies, through sometimes education, like going to like a wizarding school, or diving into just like dark tomes, and maybe not dark tomes, but tomes and grimoires and things and scrolls, and unlocking those magic hidden secrets for themselves and learning learning how to cast such spells. The main thing is learning, intelligence, their ability. As you kind of get into building your own characters. Different classes have different strengths and weaknesses. Wizards focus on intelligence. They have to be smart. They have to be able to take all the knowledge that they're taking in and actually turn it into like a physical practice of casting magic through their knowledge. Sorcerer. Here's the main distinction. Sorcerers are magic users who draw their power from within, being able to summon their raw, innate, arcane ability and bend it to their will. So you may have seen some books or stories or movies along your in your life about some character who's just like, they woke up one day, they were born with an ability to, summon fire or to fly or to, produce like ice and snow or things like that. Sorcerers have it in them. They're born with it, or something happens to them that gives them such magic ability innately. It's in them. They don't go out and search for it. They don't go out and learn how to do it. Sometimes they may learn how to harness it better. They might just have this raw magic and raw power blasting out of them. They're shooting fireballs and lightning bolts when they sneeze. You can kind of in a way, you can equate it to, like, if you're a fan of like comic books or superhero movies, kind of being born with a superpower, instead of having to go and learn the skill, learn the magic and learn how to use it. You kind of just have it. You're born with it. You woke up one day, as I said, and you could produce spells and magic within your own body, without much of an explanation. Now, every character is a little different. You can have your own different ways of how it originated. As I said, maybe the character found like a dark artifact somewhere and it imbued them with magic abilities. And now they don't have to study or learn, how to use the spells and the magic is just within them. And so wizards are kind of like, as I said, they have to create their ability through their own practice. Sorcerers, they're born with it, and from like a mechanic standpoint, wizards usually have access to more spells, a diverse range of spells, because they're going into these tomes and scrolls and books and they're learning all these spells, whereas sorcerers usually have less variety of spells because they're not a lot of them are not born with the ability to just cast and do anything. Some of them only have one thing they can do, some like fire or and lightning and frost, or maybe they can, maybe they're innate like diviners. They can see into the future. They can all sorts of different magic abilities that might just be within them as the adventure gets going. So kind of a natural magician versus one that has to learn it, and a wizard. They're naturally skilled. It comes from their own their charisma. Charisma sometimes is referred to in like charming sense, but charisma actually means like innate power, and sometimes that comes off in like a charming sense. You're swaying somebody, you're persuasive, or maybe you're deceptive. But in this sense, charisma actually means like the real, true inner power. It comes from within them. That's where the sorcerer resides in the D&D space, as compared to other magic users such as wizards. Kind of similar, but a little bit more spooky in some instances is our next magic using class, the Warlock. Now, Warlock is another one of those words that I feel like if you haven't played D&D, or if you've just heard it in passing, you may just think it means, oh, wizard. It's another kind of magic user. And as I said, there's times where that may be the case, but in Dungeons and Dragons, what's the difference between a wizard, a sorcerer, and a warlock? Well, so we just learned that wizards learn their magic, sorcerers are kind of born to have it innately. Warlock is kind of an in-between. Usually, or I'll describe a warlock. They are occult magicians and sometimes magic warriors who have made an often costly pact with an otherworldly entity, such as a demon or a devil, in exchange for dark powers. So these are not people who have learned their magic or their ability to cast magic from books or tomes, nor were they born with it. In most cases, they went and basically struck a deal with usually a dark force, but there's a variety of entities out there that warlocks can draw their power from. They're often in D&D referred to as patrons, and so this is kind of like a classic fantasy archetype as well, kind of striking a deal with a demon or a devil in exchange for mass power, and as I kind of mentioned in the description, they're not always, it's not always a nice friendly interaction between the patron. They usually require that the warlock do their bidding in lots of instances in exchange for getting power or maintaining power. And warlock spells are a little different than sorcerer and wizard spells. They're usually more kind of like dark magic. It's referred to as dark magic, occult, kind of like some may even call like a Cthulhu, kind of like H.P. Lovecraftian, alien dark energy that's associated with the magic of a warlock. They're not often trusted by like wizards, or other like users of magic, because they're kind of, it's often implied that like to have such a patron, to have such kind of dark powers from beyond, it is often tied to the character that they have their own dark wishes or dark interests, or reasonings for trying to like make a pact with such entities. So they're all, you can see that they all kind of have crossover. They're all people that can cast spells, but it kind of all comes down to how they get access to their spells, and what draws them into their groups, what brings them into the adventuring world, and what how their magic interacts with the world, where they draw it from. Wizards draw it from their tomes and scrolls. Sorcerers draw it from within, and warlocks gain such power through dark rituals and deals with these demons and devils and whatnot. So that covers all of the what I call the arcane casters. We discussed wizard, warlock, sorcerer. We have 3 more classes to discuss in 5th edition D&D, and we'll pick right back up with that after our first break, so stick around. Hey, welcome back to 10-Sided Dice, where we are still diving into our 13 main Dungeons & Dragons classes. We've done our 4 main archetypes: fighter, wizard, cleric, rogue. We've gone through our martial archetypes that stem from fighter: barbarian, paladin, ranger, monk. And we've now gone through the ones that branch off from wizard with sorcerer and warlock. We're going into the 2 that I think are closely related to cleric, but have their own kind of things that they bring to the table. So the first one we're jumping into, a very, very popular class, the Druid. Druid. Now, now we're not talking about Stonehenge here. Druid is a word that has kind of like old religion kind of associations with it, but in Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy standpoints, they are spellcasters, magic users that are as in touch with nature and the wild as anyone. Maybe even more than anyone. The ranger maybe only rivals them. Druids are earthly protectors of nature who harness magic powers of the wild and are capable of adopting the form of a variety of beasts. So they have similar magic casting abilities as wizards and clerics, in that they can draw their magic and use it to, like wizards, they can produce fire and lightning. But like clerics, druids are very good healers. Their magic kind of comes to them from nature and from the worlds of the wild, and they harness magic as they see fit to preserve and protect nature. This sometimes lots of weather involved with their, as I said, like fire, lightning, water, earth, very, very associated with druids. But also a big part of them is, as I said, the connection to nature and animals. Druids can take on the form of animals. They can shapeshift. They're kind of, I think it's the first time in the series we've said the word shapeshift, because it really is tied mostly to druids. Now, like all the classes, there's subclasses that come with each one that kind of dive in even further into specific abilities. But one of the druid subclasses dives a lot into shapeshifting, the Circle of the Moon. But yeah, so Druid is one of the best like utility classes. They can do damage. They can shoot a lightning bolt. They can heal, just like clerics can heal. They can use their nature magic to cure wounds, but they can also summon animals to their aid. They can call for like wolves and birds to come and help them fight or defend maybe their glade. And they can also, having been in nature and with wildlife a lot, can take on the forms of great beasts such as bears and snakes and boars and stags. And so Druid is a class that people love because not only can they do a lot of different things, they can be up front as turn into like a big bear fighting up in melee. They can stay in the back and do damage with spells or heal, or really kind of anything in between. And anybody who is a fan of like having, fun animal companions with them or in games, talking to animals, shape shifting, it's a really, really fun class. And as I said, is one of the best, like kind of well-rounded classes. So Druid, really, really popular. Some examples from fantasy would be maybe like Radagast the Brown from Lord of the Rings / The Hobbit. And like, this is a little bit of a stretch because it's more comic book superpower-y, but as far as like the animal form shape-shifting Beast Boy from Teen Titans, very kind of druid related, especially with the wild forms and the wild shape that they can take on. So that's the Druid. And we're going to jump into, this is for me, I grew up playing 3.5 edition. So this is for me a newer class, just like Warlock is a newer class. But this is definitely a very popular one nowadays. This is the Artificer. Now, artificers are tinkerers and engineers who can build creative inventions and tap into magic power to imbue weapons and armor with magic. Now, right off the bat, I know that some people might be like, why did you mention Artificer as kind of being a branch off of Cleric? a lot of their abilities actually are intelligence based, like wizards. And you might have heard engineering, inventions, tinkering. You can see this fellow here has a variety of supplies on him. He's got a big wrench. He's got a set of goggles. And so that seems like a very kind of like bookish, kind of character. And it is definitely that. But I kind of consider artificers, like intelligence-based clerics in that they have a variety of skills as well. They can use magic to damage, but they can also use their magic to create things, little automatons, little robots. They can take their magic and like use it to improve weaponry and armor, bolster it, give it other magical properties. And I think that they're a great utility class, which I think is what makes me consider them cleric adjacent. And that cleric is often considered a super utility class. Artificers can be melee, artificers can be ranged. Do you want to be up front in like a mech suit, kind of like a Tony Stark, like Iron Man? Do you want to be kind of like Batman and using like a variety of little gadgets, or you can stay in the back and fire like your magically and mechanically enhanced like crossbow or like musket. And they also can use their magic to kind of like repair things, and therefore can also heal. They have access to healing magic, and I think that connects them kind of back to cleric too. But they're like I said, these are kind of offshoots from like the main four archetypes, so you can tell that a lot of them have crossover in a lot of area. The fun thing is that while any character really could start as a fighter, wizard, cleric, or rogue, these add options to players to really kind of hone in on the specific kind of things you want to do. A cleric may not be as techie and venty as your character may want to be, so you slide into artificer. Your fighter may be less armory and more wanting to swing and go crazy up front, screaming and raging at your enemies, and less protected behind your sword and shield. And that's where like barbarian comes in. So a lot of the offshoot classes, as I said, kind of give you options as a player, and let it you can make it so you can tailor it exactly to the character and experience you're trying to get to. So Artificer fills a really kind of cool role. It is a little bit of a, as I said, it's a newer class, and I think it kind of brings in like the steampunk element to the classic fantasy sword and sorcery kind of fiction. It adds that layer to it. It's a huge favorite, a popular class, both in D&D, Baldur's Gate, that whole kind of sphere. We are, of course, talking about the Bard. So this is a little bit more of a kind of rough and tumble bard here, but what is a bard? Bards are performers who inspire their allies with music and art, boosting their friends in battle while hindering their foes. So, I love a bard. Bards are a wonderful kind of subversion from your typical, I have a big sword and I'm a big knight. I am a bookish wizard and I can cast little motes of fire. I'm a cleric. I can heal and worship my god and harness its power. Or I'm a rogue. I can sneak. I can pickpocket. I can disable traps and locks. Those are very, very classic. And a bard, as I said, is kind of like that left field, different addition to the fantasy sphere that is a class of whimsy. They can be guitar players, they can be drummers, they can be comedians, they can be jugglers, they can be painters, they can be tattoo artists, they could be card players, they could be well-spoken orators, they could be noblemen, businessmen, bards. We talked about charisma earlier. They are the classic case of of what you think of when you think of charisma. We talked about how sorcerers and warlocks, their charisma is like inner power, and that can be true here for the bard, but they are real charisma. They are like what you classic charisma. They're persuading. They're silver tongued. They're charming. Their performances, while fun on the outside or just kind of a transactional. I'm going to sing you a song and I'm going to get paid money for it. In Dungeons and Dragons, it's a whole nother layer to it. Performing songs, doing dances. They have the ability to inspire their allies, give them boons, give them extra health, extra armor class, the ability to re-roll bad rolls or add extra dice onto their rolls. They are the ultimate support class, but bards also have, I'm going to say, like one of the deepest vaults for flavor. Any character that's a bard is going to be one of the most engaged in the role play, engaged in the conversation, because they're often at the center of the conversation. They're the center of the entertainment, and they hold a really special place in a lot of people's hearts. If you've ever been I'm a musician. If you're a musician, if you're an artist, you can make an argument that you already, without even playing D&D, are a bard. But anybody who's very artsy and kind of in that space, it's one of the most like easy classes to jump into, because it carries over a lot from the real world. If you're a lover of arts and music and culture like that, bards are right in that space. As far as like mechanics, they're similar, I would say, to like a rogue. They can harness a variety, kind of like jack of all trades skills. I think in one of our previous episodes, I had been saving for a long time, like bestowing the title of Jack of all trades on only one class. This is the class. They can use magic like wizards and cause kind of damage and like chaos causing effects, but they also have their own kind of unique spells. They can make people laugh uncontrollably. They can make people scared or calm with their magic, with their music and their magic and their art and their performances. But they also have the ability to use, crossbows and leather armor and daggers and whatnot. They are an adventurer. They are a minstrel on the road. They are the witty-tongued kind of tactician. They're really whatever you want them to be, and they can do almost anything in the game. Of course, there may be somebody that like they're not as maybe proficient as swinging a big sword like a fighter, but they can kind of do a little bit of everything from all the other 12 classes, and that's another wonderful thing about the bard. So, you know me, I could yap all day long about all these classes, especially ones that are near and dear to my heart. But this has just been a quick kind of overview of all the classes. I hope you've been able to learn something about some of the different classes, and I hope that learning the differences has helped maybe inspire you to jump into a new character and try something new, or try something that you loved learning about and can't wait to try on your own. So get rolling those dice, get your pencil and paper, get your characters going, and always jump into some adventures with some friends when you can. This has been 10-Sided Dice. I'm Jackson Tollerton, and we'll see you for more D&D next time. Appreciate it. Much love.